Hey everyone, this is JJP Gonzalez with Software Agents TV. Welcome to the next part of our series on Houston Arcade Expo 2022. This installment is all about the brand spanking new pinball games from the show, and the absolute oldest. Just a fair warning, this video is going to contain rapidly flashing lights and colors. Once me and Sam got our VIP passes figured out, we boogied on over to the banquet room. We saw convention staff and folks from Stern and also Marco Pinball setting up the latest pinball games for 2022 and beyond. Not to mention a few stragglers from last year, although the machines weren't powered until Friday. The next morning, me and Sam made a move to the new Stern tables. We set up our gear and we started rolling. Of the group, I'm the resident James Bond fan, so I got pretty excited when they announced in the press kit that not only will we be getting a new James Bond pinball game for the show, but that it would be based on Sean Connery, who, he's my favorite Bond actor, he's a lot of people's favorite Bond actor, to some people, he's the only James Bond. James Bond 007 Pinball had two models. The Pro model was themed after Dr. No, which is the first official James Bond movie. And the more expensive Premium model was themed after You Only Live Twice. Now, this Pro and Premium business with Stern games can be pretty confusing, but think of it like this. They're essentially two different versions of the same game. It's almost like Pokemon Red and Blue, but you know it's pinball. The really big difference that I noticed between these two models is that the Premium one has a playfield toy with Bond in his jetpack, and there's also another one with his diving outfit from Thunderball. The quote-unquote gameplay seemed otherwise pretty identical between the two tables. The first of the new games that I tried was the Dr. No model. Something that I discussed with Saturn is that the layout of the James Bond game reminded us of older pinball games, and I just want to make it clear that we don't mean that in a bad way. The playfield toys were appropriate for the license. It had the right balance of being on brand and getting you excited to play the game, but without indulging in any excess. They had the jetpack, the missile, the film clips. It was all very cool. Overall, I really liked both models of the James Bond pinball game, and everybody else in the group seemed to generally enjoy it. The consensus was You Only Live Twice was the better of the two tables at the show.
For James Bond 007, I played both versions of the game. I preferred the You Only Live Twice one. Each time I played that, I had more fun and played better. It's probably a placebo effect, but I liked the backboard art better as well. This is my favorite of the new games at the expo, but only the Live Twice one. It's a no for me on the other version. My only gripe is, like many of the new Stern games, the ball tends to fall in the outlanes a lot. To compensate, the player is often awarded with many ball saves. I wish this wasn't the case. It's frustrating when it happens. Here's an example in Stern's Star Wars. But the jetpack is cool and I like hitting the rocket. And don't forget that rad little spy car. This is my favorite of the new games at the expo.
As much fun as I had with the James Bond pinball game, I liked our next game even better. Rush Pinball came out earlier this year. For me, this was my first chance to finally play it. So the idea of this game is that the band starts in the year 2012, and you're trying to move the time machine forward 100 years to 2112. It's such a dime store opinion, but 2112 is a great album. And what's really admirable about Rush is that for the most part, the band was those three guys sticking to their guns and doing the music for decades. This right here is the Rush Pro model in action. The back glass is based on the song and album Fly By Night. John Borg, the game designer, and also Tim Sexton, the programmer, were both at the convention. They were on the show floor, and they also did a panel for the game. It was really exciting to talk to Borg. He's just a very humble, soft-spoken man. Yes, this is the official press image of him. He has a long and decorated career in the industry. He's done Data East Star Wars, Munsters, Avatar Pinball, way too many to count, and way too many pinball games for just one video. At the panel, Borg explained that this project was something that he pushed for because he's a really big fan of Rush. Sexton explained that some of the challenges that they had with the Rush estate was to make sure that their lead drummer and band conceptualist, the late Neil Peart, was treated with dignity and respect. The Stern team actually couldn't pick any of the songs from the game, the Rush people came to them with a list. Sexton further explained that the Rush music in the game was from the albums and not the concerts. They used some video editing trickery to make it match up. Another challenge the team faced is during playtesting, the ball got stuck consistently in the same spot. So they had to, in Borg's words, do a little surgery with it. And I'm glad they did, because the game had a great flow to it. And that left me feeling very satisfied afterwards. The upper flipper shot was cool, and the multi-ball was very satisfying to pull off.
I didn't play Rush very much. I mostly just recorded it. It's a nice looking game and it was enjoyable to play. I'm glad my brother was happy with it though.
Well, that covers our thoughts on the new Stern games. Let's move on to Weird Al's Museum of Natural Hilarity. This is Multimorphic's new game for 2022. The whole idea of the game is that it's a museum that has a bunch of references to Weird Al's career. The dinosaur from his song Jurassic Park, the fanny pack from White and Nerdy, Running with Scissors, UHF. So what Multimorphic does with their P3 games is that they're part screen and part upper playfield. And the upper playfields are essentially models that get pegged in. You can swap them out and the game ROMs for other games. What you do on the upper playfield affects what happens on the LCD screen. Here we have the game mode based on Like a Surgeon. To be honest with you, with all these LCD screens and reflecting glass, this was probably the hardest game to film.
I appreciate that this type of machine is unique to other pinball games and what Stern has been cooking up recently. That being said, I feel like this design is a bit barren. I don't think the screen design does much to enhance the experience. This game feels like it needs more moving parts. I think that it'd be more enjoyable if this theme was used in a normal pinball machine. There needs to be more things to interact with. I feel like some of the references they chose weren't the best picks. I'd like to see more eat it and fat and less of that gerbil thing. I really don't recognize that, and that's not what I think of when I think of Weird Al. Maybe this will be more enjoyable the more I play it, but it was also occupied most of the expo, and there was only one machine. It's neat, but feels a bit underwhelming. It's also hard, so I barely got to experience the song challenges because I kept losing. But that part is on me.
Overall, this is my favorite of the Multimorphic games I've played so far, but this one was just kind of alright to me. I didn't feel as strongly about it as I did the new Stern games.
Welcome to the fascinating world of germs. Watch out, they'll attack your probes if you don't tame them first.
They had 2 Jersey Jack tables at the show. Something I'm starting to realize is that Jersey Jack tables are not as ubiquitous as modern day Stern games, so they're kind of a treat to see. Todd Tuckey of TNT Amusements, he was at the show, he referred to them as more of a boutique manufacturer. And when I find out that they only make like a few hundred, maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 of these games, I'm starting to see the applicability of his statement. I missed Guns N' Roses last year. It was always getting a line around it, and when there wasn't, the damn game went out of service. Thankfully, I was able to try it this year at Joysticks, and also at the Expo. Over there, Gabby's giving the game a shot. The idea of the game is that the current lineup, Axel, Slash, Duff, Dizzy, Melissa Reese, and the others, are putting on a show, and if you perform badly, the round ends. So that puts a lot of pressure on you to do well in the game. It's a really cool idea to have as a game mode. The biggest surprise for me was that they had Toy Story 4 Pinball, which is the latest design from Pat Lawler. Sam showed me the trailer when they announced it. He got very excited, which surprised me because he's one of the biggest critics of the movie.
If this video gets 500 likes, Sam will make a rant about why Toy Story 4 sucks.
Toy Story is such a broad series that it's weird to me to base a pinball game specifically on that movie. I mean, Toy Story 4 wasn't even new when this game came out, so that's a little strange. I understood that this game, like all Jersey Jack games, was being produced in very limited quantities. So I just kind of accepted the fact, well, I may very well never play that game. But I'm glad some Guardian Angel bugged our conversation and proved me wrong. The game has an internal motor in it, which kinda reminds me of Earthshaker. The objective of the game is to complete a bunch of tasks at the carnival in order to start the wizard mode. Sentient toys creating chaos at a carnival was my favorite part of that movie. So I'm glad that Lawler and his team were able to make that work, integrate the new characters from the movie. The game was a lot of fun.
Well, those were some of the latest pinball games. But what about the oldest games at the show?
You know what they say, out with the new and in with the old.
This corner over here was run by the folks from historyofpinball.org, Jeff Frick and Brian Redshaw. Jeff had a presentation in the conference room about Great Depression era pinball, and we also got to speak with him for a little bit.
These are all like really early baffle ball. This is one of the first Gottlieb games, right? And you can see where even Rockola and Keeney were making the baffle ball for Gottlieb. 70,000, 50,000, 70,000 of those games were made. This game came out of Beaumont, I think. These double pinballs.
Whoa.
To my knowledge, nothing in this little nook is more recent than 1936. Both me and Saturn had written and spoken about the more primordial pin games, but this was our first time getting hands-on with them. So that was very exciting for our pinball education. Sometimes you just need to see and interact with something in person, in order to truly get tactile perspective. These games are purely mechanical. They have no computers in them, no dot matrix display, they have no reels, they have no flippers. It's all about the strength of your plunge and getting some good nudges in there.
So see how the center spins, which I think is the coolest thing? Yeah. Right?
Some of these games could be modified for free play, others still required a coin.
How many cents you said?
10 balls for 1 cent. Here's my 2 cents.
Let me know where you find that.
Getting a lot of mileage out of that nickel.
When I first got my hands on some older pinball machines at last year's Arcade Expo, I saw a lot of disclaimers. They're games of skill, for jolly amusement, and totally not gambling, Mr. Federal Government, we swear. How could these innocent games even be perceived this way? This need for every machine to beat the gambling accusations didn't make sense. That was until I played some of the Great Depression era games from our dark, pre-flipper American history. Now for these games, I can absolutely see the argument that they're intended for gambling. The only control you have over the game is the strength of the plunge. Beyond that point, it's entirely random. Assuming you don't tilt the machine, which I did not because I didn't want to break it or to contract tetanus. All that aside, I do think these machines were novel to play and interesting glances at pinball's history. After the introduction of flippers, it became a lot harder to argue that these games relied on pure chance. However, there was still a prominent dead zone in between the flippers of most older machines. These random drain shots the game would often force on you encouraged tilting. As the oldest electromechanical pinball machine on the floor, Pretty Baby immediately caught my eye. My thoughts on older machines haven't changed much since our coverage last year, though I'm much more aware of their unfair aspects. I still enjoy their more relaxed pace, the satisfying mechanical feel, and their general aesthetic. However, Pretty Baby brought something to the forefront for me: the score. If you're used to playing modern games, you'll expect to see scores in the millions and billions. But Pretty Baby's scoreboard sits at a refreshing 4 digits. Personally, having an attainable max score of 9,999 makes the point system feel more consequential. So despite the game being slower and less intense than almost every other game on the floor, I found myself more invested. My favorite parts of attending the Houston Arcade Expo and visiting locations like the Game Preserve are these older machines, and I greatly appreciate the effort that goes into preserving them.
Well, with all that in mind, let's jump to other eras of pinball. Stay tuned for the next installment as we cover solid-state pinball games from the late 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. Thanks for watching our video. Have you played any of these recent pinball games? Let us know what you thought of them. And let us know what you thought of the video in the comments below. Check out this screen over here for our socials and other ways to help out the channel. or you can just stick around till the end for related videos. Either way, we'll catch you next time.